Hello everyone, welcome to a new session on Python for data science. So today we'll start with discussing data types. Right? So what are the different data types available in Python? We'll discuss the different data types available in Python and examples for this. So Python has basically support for data types like int, basically numbers. It supports different data types in numbers. In numbers, it basically has support for int. It has support for float. It has support for complex numbers. Then it supports basically all your Boolean data types, right? All your true, false, all of those data types. Then it also has a very strong support for string data types as well. So this particular string data type, right, has actually a whole lot of support in Python. So in terms of features and functionality, it's pretty diverse as well as rich in Python. Yeah, we'll at least discuss an introduction for string. Maybe in further classes we'll go in depth. It's starting with integer, right? So integer basically used to store integer values. So this data type basically stores int. So you just go to say I'm creating a number, say 23. So when you look at this particular type, right? So type is basically the built-in function which you'll be using. So what basically are built-in functions, right? Built-in functions are those which are already available in the Python namespace. Again, what is namespace is nothing but whatever functions, whatever variables are available whenever you load Python. Right? So this is an entirely new Python environment which you have created, right? So in any new Python environment, whatever functions you can just directly load, right? All those are called as built-in functions, right? Then there are other functions which you can either install from external libraries, or maybe if you have your own certain built-in functions, you can import them as well. That also would work. But for now, what type is a function is basically tell you what is the data type of a particular variable. Right? In this particular case, it's int. Right. So again, since these are integers, you can easily, so the range of integers is from minus to plus, including zero, right? So we can check this as well. So over here you can see that this particular variable is its data type is basically int. We can just have a cross check for negative numbers as well, just for clarity. And as you can see, this is also again int. So one more number data type which basically Python has support is something that's called as float. So float is nothing but your decimal points, right? You just include 8.99. So when you check for the type of this is nothing but you would get a value float, right? So float basically can have a set of values from positive to negative. So obviously it does not include zero. Zero basically falls under integer data type. Right? So next, Python basically has support for complex numbers as well. So what basically complex? I think you would have come across this maybe in your high school or maybe primary mathematics, right? So x plus iy, right? So wherein I is basically the complex number. So coming to how do you denote this in Python? It's very straightforward. So again, we'll again use the same variable name again, just for consistency in the names. So when you use this, when you check in the type, right? When you check the type of this, you basically end up returning complex. So these are complex numbers, and so obviously it can be, instead of writing 2 plus 4j, you can easily write 2 minus 4j as well. That also would work. Right? Obviously, you can't use star in them because 2 into 4j it will throw an error. And we can check that as well in case that's not clear. You just do 2 plus 4j. Okay, so you can just check the value of a as well. Now, when you look at the type of it, it is nothing but a complex number. Okay, so next, the next type basically is your Boolean. So what are Boolean? Boolean basically are either true or false. So you get generally these kind of these things as output. You generally get Boolean numbers when we're running some condition. And just to give you an example, say again A, then you have another number called B. Now again you are storing this, so you're basically checking if B is greater than A. Right now, when you just check the output of this particular cell, so you get a bool. Bool is shorthand for it's either Boolean or non-Boolean. Right. So these are this is what is Boolean. So next, basically, what we'll move on to is strings. So strings basically are letters, right? Just to give a simple straightforward example, is nothing but letters. So A is var, then you're using type. So what basically type? Again, type is a built-in function which will basically tell you what is the data type of this particular variable. So str is nothing but string, right? So you can basically do a whole lot with the strings, right? Just to give an example. So when you so again consider this as a number integer. Now, if you're actually trying to just pull the first digit, you basically get this error, right? Basically, you get a type error. So yeah, we'll discuss the error messages maybe in a bit more later on stages. But for now, this is a type error. You get type error whenever you basically can't run this particular method or you can't run this particular operation. Okay. So in this particular case, you say A is equal to 555. You're basically trying to subscript. It immediately throws an error. So again, we'll look at what would happen in case of a string. Right. So you see the difference over here, right? So in the beginning, when you say A is equal to 555, A is equal to 0, you basically got an int object. So you got the type error. In the second case, whenever I try to subscript, so its strings are easily subscriptable as well. Okay. So you can basically choose one. So instead of just one, maybe you can just choose a range of values as well. That is also particularly fine. And you can usually choose a range of objects as well. So again, one more important thing in Python is, so basically it starts from zero. Counting in Python basically starts from zero. I think this might be a bit odd in the beginning at least, since you are used to saying the first position is 1, the first position is 2, the second position is 2, the next position is 3, and so on, right? But that's not the case with Python. With Python, the counting starts from zero basically. So it's like basically 0, 1, 2. It's not 1, 2, 3. It's like saying in this particular case, right? So A is equal to -var, right? So V basically, the index of V is basically 0. Index of A is 1 and index of R is 2. Okay. One more properties of strings and numbers basically is, say you can only get the output, so it's only read only sort of, and strings are basically read only. So once a string is created, you cannot change maybe any particular letters, any particular index. So you usually get string does not support item assignment. But what you can do basically, you can replace the whole string. If that's the case, you can replace the whole string, right? You can replace the whole string, but what you cannot do is you cannot subscript particular letter from this string, right? So I can't replace the first letter with some other, second with some other, right? So it's basically not subscriptable. It does not support item assignment, so you can't assign an item to it. Okay. So this is actually a very important property which you'll be using maybe in further classes, but for now I think this should be good enough, right? So then there are ways you can easily concatenate two strings. What do you mean by concatenation? Is combine, right? So I have a string called hello over here. Now if I create a new string called world, now how do I basically combine this? Is obviously whenever I write A plus B, I get it in a single string, right? Because I'm just combining. So what is generally if you want to put a space between them, right? And then if you want to put a space, it's again very straightforward to just put in a comma is equal to P. So you get this thing with space, right? So then there is something which is called as raw strings. What basically are raw strings is, in some cases, right? In some cases, you would want string apostrophes to be there. So again, let me explain this with an example. Maybe then I think it would make sense. Okay, so say I'll just use a print statement. Print hello world. So this one would obviously run. Now, when you get hello world. Now, basically, what we will do is we'll consider a case where we have few. We basically have few apostrophes wherein we need to fill it up. Say instead of having hello world, maybe we'll just add a slash yes. Right. So basically, we want to display slashes. So that's a particular use case. Now consider the case wherein I just don't want to display. In this particular case works. Now consider a case wherein I want to put a first put apostrophe inside s. Yeah, maybe I just want to emphasize this particular s. Yes, right. So I just want to emphasize this. Maybe put a double inverted comma over here as well. So as you can see, that is a bit of a challenge, right? So when I put this and run, so I basically get an invalid syntax. So basically, what you do in such cases is, you basically use something which is called as either. So either one obvious way is either use a raw string and run this, or the other option would be just use escape sequences. So when you run this using escape sequences, you would obviously you would obviously end up with some output. So that's the other option. Right? You basically end up with you basically run this with escape sequences. So when you run this with escape sequences, obviously you will get some output. So if you skip sequences just before starting, so you just want to show this. So just before starting, you put this. So basically, what are raw strings? So now you want these things to be shown as well. You want the slashes to be shown, right? So in such cases, you need to use raw strings. Then the slashes will also be indicated. So basically, in Python, there is an entire sort of field just focus only on text. So there are different methods implemented. So there's something that's called as regular expressions, which are also implemented as well. So basically, what are regular expressions are? It's basically searching for text. It's nothing but a set of rules which can basically use to search for text, or you can letters. But in general, regular expressions are majority. A majority of its use case is mainly text-related applications only. So we'll actually be covering regular expressions and different methods of strings a bit later on. So after we just finish off the basics, we'll basically have a separate playlist as well as on text analytics as well. So in that particular set of series of lectures, we'll basically discuss strings in detail. But for now, I think this is it. So what basically, I mean, just a brief recap. We basically discussed different data types: int, float, complex, Boolean, as well as we discussed what are strings and different these things available in strings.